Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Josh and Jason Monday Christian and Conspiracy Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Monday. If you don't know me, I'm a Christian rapper, devoted husband, father, and Army veteran. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host. He's a Christian, devoted husband, father, and football coach. What's up, Jason? How's it going, bro?
Good afternoon. How's it going, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a good show for you. I didn't even know we were going to have a podcast tonight until on the way home from work. So Josh has surprised me, and right on. It's a good surprise. And let's go. Let's do this.
I'll admit, I did tell him we are having a podcast with you on, but sometimes it slips your reminder. So I think I told you last week when we're at the
don't let fool you
watching the Ngannou fight. Anyways,
he just goes, "Hey, we're having a podcast tomorrow at 5 a.m. What?
Let's go.
And then we're having another one next day at 5 a.m.
He's ready for it. He just launches you.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Hey, it's all good. Hey, I know that Nathan can hold his own and he does a great job on podcast. So we have child assassin, SRA, human trafficking and mind control survivor, man of God, devoted husband, father, and also a veteran. How's it going, Nathan?
Doing fantastic. It's really exciting to be here with you guys.
We appreciate you coming on, bro, and sharing your testimony and your story. So what branch of military were you in?
I was in the United States Army.
Oh, me too. I was also in the Army. So you did, how many deployments did you have?
You know, I never went outside of the United States. All of my work that I did in the United States military was here.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I went to Kuwait. So I did a year in Kuwait, fueling helicopters, and then everything else is over here. And
you act like it's jail. He's like, well, I did a year bid in Kuwait.
Everybody's got their own time.
Wasn't the funnest place in the world, but hey, you know,
it actually wasn't too bad, man. I mean, compared to what other people have gone through in the
all
military,
you did was work out, dude. All you did was
work
out. Like every day, I'm like, what the hell's going on over there? He's like, there's nothing to do.
Chicken, rice, and work out. So, all right, well, let's get into your story, Nathan, if you could, man. I know you're an international speaker. You're kind of, tell us your story, man, so we can kind of understand what's going on with you, brother, and what happened with you in your life.
You know, I definitely wasn't born into a very typical family. On one side of my life, it looked pretty normal from the surface. You know, my family was kind of your everyday Christians that went to church and were actively involved and volunteering for everything. But behind the scenes, it was kind of just a veil that covered up a great deal of darkness that they were complicitly authorizing in my life. And so I grew up thinking that an organized crime family and incest-based generational iniquity was normal. And I thought that was the keys to life. You know, and so my family that I descend from have a lot of familial connections, especially out on the East Coast. But my dad left that and came out to Arizona and started kind of building his own little kingdom out here. And he ended up getting connected with my mom and her family, and they operate out of a place called Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And they, at a young age, brought me down there and began to traumatize me and abuse me. And it's not some kind of like normal type of abuse, as I don't want to try to diminish anybody else's experiences or what they've gone through, but this is a very systemic and very religious commitment to a cause. And this was a scientific based procedure to try to shatter and traumatize me at a very early age, and created me just like a constant, absolute, inescapable belief that I could never get out, that there was never an escape. There was never anybody I could talk to that wasn't already a part of the cult, that there wasn't anybody else that wasn't a part of this. And they were really big embracers of this cult of the serpent. And they like to try to summon up serpents. And the way that they do that, y'all, is like they shed blood in very specific and ritualistic manners to try to call up these spirits of Python and the spirits of Quetzalcoatl that they were like obsessed with. And they believed that these spirits would possess them with the ability to foretell. And it's something that had happened in times in antiquity. This is what Paul and the apostles were dealing with back even overseas. You know, these serpents have a way of forecasting into the future and giving people downloads on what's going to come. And it makes whoever has that information uses that for financial gains predominantly. And so, but they use that, the access to power was brought through pedophilia predominantly, and it was always a generation out. So it wasn't like my dad, my mom, and they never were physically abusive towards me or sexually abusive towards me, but my grandfathers were, and my great grandfathers were. And so it was a very like deliberate, intentional abuse, and it was involved a lot of the invocation of oaths. So it was very ritual based, and it's something that is kind of it's like impossible to get your head around it unless you're in it. And it's this like connection with human trafficking starts to get involved in it at a very strong and systemic rate. The place like Havasu City, Arizona, for those of you that don't know what this place is or never heard of it, Robert P. McCulloch was a guy who was the founder of the city, brought an engineer over from who founded and built Disneyland, and his name was C.V. Wood, and they wanted to build a pleasure island, a place where men could have their pleasures and they could profiteer off of the abuse and traumatization of children. So they literally bought the London Bridge from the city of London and they had it shipped over here stone by stone. And when they exhumed it, the nursery rhyme song that you hear people singing, this London Bridge is falling down, that is about entombing your children in the stones of power in order to keep it upright. And even when they brought that building over here, when they were exhuming it, they found something that's practiced, which is called inurement, where they would literally bury people alive in the walls of the foundations of these things and sacrifice them. They found 80 bodies, including 5 children, when they brought that thing over here. And that practice was still propagated today. When they reestablished the tomb, they brought the Lord Mayor of London, who's literally, they have a parade every single year. And the city of London is the financial epicenter of the earth, y'all. It's a sovereign city state, just like the Vatican and the District of Columbia. These are these 3 empires, one a military, one a religious, and one the financial empires that rule a lot of the surface dwelling side of the world. And the Lord Mayor of London has a parade every year held in his honor where they bring out the giants, literal giant idols of Gog and Magog, that the Lord Mayor himself is, kind of acting as if he wields them and bows down to them in the same way. So what you're dealing with is a deep spiritual occultism, and these people have practiced this old religion. And so Robert P. McCulloch, they sold this little island that they created that the city of London's bridge sits over, became a legal sovereign territory for the city of London. This gave people political and legal anonymity to engage in a lot of these sexual abominations on that island. And that's why they use that island and that town for those rings. And so I grew up having these 2 really dualistic split personalities, of one that was very normalized and one that was very traumatized and very abused. And it left me with a lot of rage and a lot of hatred and a lot of I wanted to stop it. At the end of the day, I just wanted to stop it. Any chance if somebody would just let me fight back and stop these guys and stop the abuse, because it wasn't just me. It happened to like other family members of mine. The males in my family were just constantly getting abused, and it led me on a path of a lot of vengeance and a lot of bloodshed and a lot of murder and killing. And that's where I got wholly caught up with all the way up through my teenage years and on into the military.
Well, you mentioned Gog and Magog in London, don't they? I heard something that they actually have like a festival every year about Gog and Magog, because they say that Gog and Magog are actually the ones that they call upon as their guardians of the city. I don't know if it's in the British Isles or London, or I don't know what it is, but I heard they have a festival every year, and some people don't even believe that. And I think I told my brother that a few months ago, but that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that they actually did that. They actually worship and call upon these entities. These old entities that actually. So Gog and Magog could be Nephilim, or it could be giants from back in the day. I didn't think of that. I thought it was actually a city or a country.
Well, a lot of people, they interpret it as like Iran, Russia, stuff like that. But I mean, if it's but some people believe it's a spirit of something. So that's interesting, Nathan. I see that you got Johnny Cerrucci's book back there, Illuminati Unmasked. Yeah. So it looks like you're on the right track, bro. Shout out to Johnny Cerrucci. Let's go, baby.
Every chance I can, man. I try to point people try to bring me on. They're like, we have this Illuminati bloodline guy. I'm like, y'all, the Reynolds family are like a tiny iota drop in the bucket of like real bloodline families, like the Black Nobility, the Merovingians, the Aldobrandinis, the Medicis. There's a totally different substrate of Orsini's. There's a totally different rulers. And Johnny Cerrucci's book, The Illuminati Unmasked, is a much better, thorough examination of what is generally not allowed to be discussed, which is this great horror of Babylon, the Roman Catholic Church, this generational wealth of empire that has been dominating and controlling. And where, if you haven't, man, y'all, if you guys haven't read this one, have you read this one of his? This one's just brutal. It's called The Eaters of Children, the Pedocracy Exposed, How Access to Power is Granted Through the Rape, Torture, and Ritualistic Slaughter of the Innocent. This is a much more thorough diagnostic exposition of where we have had this cult that is all about, I mean, ritualistic abuse of children. And why are these the people that get propped up in positions of power? And it's, you have to deal with these gods of Sybil and Ishtar, and these are deities that these people are absolutely 100%, they are their agents here, they're their priests here, and they make no qualms about it. If you actually are part of those inner circles, this is who they swear their allegiances, this is who they swear their oaths to, and this is who are the spirits behind the carnal human versions of their masters on this earth. And so this is an incredibly hard book to read, I'll be honest, especially for me, given from what I came from. But it's the first time I've ever seen anybody even talk about the castrati. Like, one of the things my family did was crush like my epididymis, which is like a cord that connects your testes to your body, to make me like a prepubescent boy for way longer. It keeps your voice way higher so you can sing really high, and it makes you look like a little boy for a lot longer. So these perverts can get their jollies off of you, and that's called the castrati. And the Catholic Church has been doing that by the thousands to little boys for generations now.
Oh my
1600 1800 years. They've never made a formal apology about it. They were doing it to 4,000 children a year that he documents in here. And anyways, that's the first time I've ever seen anybody remotely touch on that topic, and he's a powerhouse for that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, guys, shout out to Johnny Cerrucci. He's been on our show twice. I haven't had him on since because he's just so busy. So we'll get him back on though. But yeah, thanks, man. That's a great explanation of two of his books, and good shout out to him. But man, so you're talking about Havasu City, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Lake Havasu City.
Yeah, imagine, guys. Okay, this is what's crazy, because when me and Jason were kids, we would go out to Havasu because we're from California, so we'd go out there and try to hop on someone's boat or have fun. But there's so many different women chasing, and there's so much sin out there. You could feel that type of energy when you go there, that you want to engage in that kind of activity, so I could understand, like, I mean, that was just me as a teenager feeling like that, go to Havasu, hook up with girls. So there's that spirit of like sexuality there and sex and women. So I could imagine, bro, that evil side being there for sure, man. I
got arrested for jumping off the London Bridge into the water, and I got busted for that, dude. I just spent a night out there, and it was not fun. I was underage too, and I had to go all the way back out there for the ticket and everything like that. And it was horrible, dude. I almost died too because I couldn't swim that, dude. The current, oh my gosh, was so strong. I'm like, dude, I'm swimming, bro, but I ain't going anywhere.
Wow.
I was gonna die there, but yeah, I got busted for this. So yeah, the London Bridge is not a good memory for me,
bro. The way you explain that, so they found those bodies as they exhumed it, and then they brought it over. I mean, how would they not like think, hey, maybe this is a bad idea,
I mean, that is why they got it here, y'all. Like this,
wow.
they got this thing and they built tunnels. So the whole island that goes across that bridge has these foundation stones along it, and that is literally, there's a tunnel system that goes underneath the water of that canal, like you were talking about, where those swift currents flow. But that allows them to go in, and there's literal chamber rooms down there for ritualistic abuse and sacrifice. And there's even on my YouTube page, I have a documentary guy put together. It's called Shadows Out of London Bridge. And there was ghost hunters who got access to the inner tunnel sites of that and went down there, and we're filming inside there, and you can see that stuff for yourself. It's not some kind of like theoretical thing I'm talking about here. Like, this is actual reality, and it interconnects along those front shops that go along there as well. And specifically, a lot of the traffickings run out of a travel agency there, where people literally book timeshares and book opportunities to have access to these children. And so it's a really serious place. The literal gates from Buckingham Palace are right there. The chariot that the kings and the queens and the monarchs would use for like weddings, it's a freak show. When you go there, y'all, like, there's gods and goddesses everywhere and idols. Like, it is bizarro land. If you don't know anything about occultism, and you don't know anything about the mystery religions, and the Great Red Dragon, which is the heraldic symbol, is everywhere. There's all these lighthouses of the Great Red Dragon all over Havasu Lake. And if you don't know anything about this, if you're not part of this esoteric circle, you're just like, whatever, it's some kind of touristy thing. But no, this is like an absolute sovereign territory here, and they are trying to raise up these same gods to have access to Death Valley. I literally believe this is why Death Valley is there, because Death, the literal entity that has dominion over these souls of men, literally has his throne and his kingdom going that way from the other side of California in, and that's their place where they're trying to raise up the serpent, the Great Red Dragon, here in America. This is literally where we get the definition for the name America, means land of the plumed serpent. That is literally the name of this deity that has been the territory of this obsessive cult for thousands of years. And my desire in my life is to do everything we can to expose the wicked works of darkness. That's what I'm called to do, and that's what everybody who should be contending against this wickedness with everything in them should be fighting against these secret societies, man. They're destroying our lives and destroying our children.
Yes, I agree, man, definitely. And ultimately, it's Satan. It's the principalities of evil and heavenly and high places that are ruling over these people, and everybody knows, man. All the secret societies out there. At the top of the pyramid is Lucifer. It is Satan. That's their light bearer. So whether they know it or not, the lower levels might not know. But when you read all these books, like you've been into, as you know, with the Jesuits, Orsini's, and all these people, that Satan is definitely at the top. So, man, yeah, I agree, man. We should expose evil. It says it in Ephesians to expose evil, man. So that's what we should definitely do. And can I ask you some questions, man? Did your parents know like what was going on, like, or were they? Did they know what your grandparents were doing and all that stuff? And were they part of any secret society, your parents, or was it just your grandparents part of that?
My family definitely, my parents in particular, knew that there was abuse that was happening. Even when I brought it up to my dad when I was finally married, because I didn't talk about this with people. I talked about it a little bit with one of my girlfriends in high school, but otherwise I kept this stuff so buried. I had so much shame and guilt and over it. And I didn't want to touch it. And especially when I was still living and around my family member, they had a lot of constant access to me. But when I did finally talk to him about it, he's like, yeah, I knew there was abuse going on and stuff like that, especially with you and grandpa. But like, I'll try to fix it now, basically. And he was sorry that it happened. But my dad made a legal contract when I was like 11 and 12 years old. When he went out, my great grandfather, who was on his side of the family, he brought him over to our house and moved him back from New York City. He was the former president of the American Society of Civil Engineering, and he was deeply steeped in Luciferianism, in a much more like what people would think of as like Luciferianism in the forms of Freemasonry and like that tenet of it. And I make a distinction between like what deity these people worship, because they make a distinction. I don't call it all Satanism because they don't call it all Satanism. They are worshiping specific deities and doing different rituals to try to dial the phone book of these guys' numbers. He was in charge of taking the actual when they did a massive refurbishment of the Statue of Liberty, this goddess of Columbia, he was the one who was in charge of that entire project. And so he was a master mason working that divine right in and was doing and participating in a lot of pedophilic abuse. And so my dad, when he wanted access to the trust fund, he signed over those rights, and I started getting abused on a whole other level with somebody that lived with me. And so those were things he actively was aware of. Now, to what extent my mom was aware of what was going on, I don't know. I mean, she had to change bloody nasty underwear and puke. I mean, there was some nasty, disgusting evidences and marks on me that were readily there. And my mom was raised by this guy, man. She was raised by a monster, like the worst kind, man. Like the guy who drowns children.
So that was from your mom's side? The gentleman that,
and he's still alive, this guy, and he's
still alive.
And he still gets access to children by the dozens. Like, it's
gosh,
absolutely detestable, and this is like, these people don't mess around, man. This is their family business. And they look at it the same way that other people look at their company, and so they've got a secret to protect, and their products literally are these mind controlled slaves, man. That's what they produce. And that's what they produce by the bucket load for other families. That's what he's good at. And so my mom was like a shattered woman. Like, she was basically like, if you ever seen the Stepford Wives, like these just kind of like just loopy out of it people all the time. My mom was kind of like that. She presented almost dumb to a lot of people. She was a very smart woman, but she was like, almost looked like she was on opiates all the time, like dissociative.
So she was
and so she's being handled and mind
probably,
controlled constantly. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, dude. Did
you ever think that maybe that you might have been trafficked yourself, and those did you ever get a DNA test to your parents? Like, maybe they might not be.
Man. Believe
you know what I mean?
Lots
because
of questions there.
I
man.
have a son and I have kids, and I would never let that like nothing happen to them. But you would think that maybe people wouldn't really care more about, would care less about another person's child, that they just, that they just keep doing. I'm not trying to bring up anything soon, because it just kind of makes me feel kind of like, you think about it, it's like, man, I like, you're a good guy. You seem like a really, energetic person, and for someone to be traumatized like that, like, you would, I don't know, maybe I would think that maybe that my parents might have not have done that, or maybe I was trafficked as well.
this is a question I've wrestled with for a long time. I'll be super straight with you, because there's even like all these, my mom started handing me all these like pieces of information, like little clues over the last year after my wife got pregnant with our daughter. She started handing me all this baby stuff and journals that she had and calendars that she had and photo albums, like the stuff that's in my book of me getting abused, like sexually abused and stuff. She gave me all that stuff. And I think it was like her way of trying to help me get the breadcrumbs and figure out what was going on, because she always used to say, like, Nathan, I believe God's going to use you for mighty things. She would say that to me all the time, but she also would call me different names. She used to call me Levi a lot of times too. And like, she would be confused about me and some other son. And so I always was really never attached to her in any like deep, real capacity, like that experience that people have about like wanting their moms in that way. I've never known that like reality. And she even used to write in this baby's first year calendar, like days when I met my other mothers, and she would write that in. And this is a really common thing that happens with cults, is they start shifting your attachments very early on, and they start binding you up with other moms, and they take you away from your original birth mom. They start like hooking you up with a different kind of mom or somebody else to be like a wet nurse for a while, and then they take you away from her. And like, so it's a constant destabilization. It's like the key core tenets of this entire success of this organization is that they have to destabilize children at a critical attachment phases. So then they'll be more susceptible to do that's what's called like love bonding, where you're just going to jump in onto a handler of somebody that presents themselves in a way that's like shows you love and kindness and that kind of stuff. And so I've never done the whole DNA test and all the rest of it. I have lots of major concerns and questions about like my birth certificate. I mean, every time I try to get into any of this stuff, it gets real funky, real messy. Like the very doctors who are signing off my birth certificates got convicted of doing forgeries in all kinds of different ways before. So there's a whole chain of evidence of a lot of mishandling of life and truth and stuff like that. But I always pray and ask the Father to go ahead and bring everything that's been done in secret to the light, because it's what he said is going to happen. Everything that they've ever done in secret is coming to the light. And it's
going to be shouted off the rooftops.
It's going to get shouted out, man. It's inescapable. It's an absolute inevitability for every single one of us. Our deepest, darkest, worst moments are coming out, and so I'd rather go ahead and do that right now and make sure that everything that I've ever done is brought to the light, so that it's not used as a weapon against me. This is why there's freedom and from the confession of sins.
Amen, dude. And thank you so much for your bravery too, man, for coming out. And if you could please shout out your book too, so people can know what that is. This
is my book, y'all. Snatched from the Flames. I wrote this like 7 years ago, y'all, and I have it on my website, snatchedfromtheflames.com. You can name your own price for, like, I have an ebook, I have an audio version book of this. I also did an entire audio recording of the scriptures. To me, that's more important. Like, I needed to lay my foundation of my house with the word. And there's a lot of people when I ask that question, how do you, like, people say they're believers, and I ask them all the time, have you ever read the Bible? And almost all of them say no. Like 8 out of 10 people I've ever asked, have you read it from Genesis to Revelation? They say no. And that's one of the greatest, most important things. So you can read my book as well, which goes through a lot of the journey of like coming to realize a lot of these things. And like the biggest question for me was like, how do I tell my wife? Because she got to marry a very different man than the guy who showed up a little bit into our marriage. It's like a lot of wives who are married to combat veterans who suddenly get a different husband one day, and 90% of them lose their marriage because of it. And so I was terrified to lose my marriage to the only person I ever knew that like had authentic, unadulterated love for me. She didn't have an ulterior motive. Whereas everybody else that I ever came in and out of my life, I had to try to find out, is this person just here to use me?
Wow, bro, that's powerful, man. Well, so basic, man, you had some crazy stuff growing up. So you said you were like, they did this to you so that they could use you for killing. I mean, did they try to like raise you up so they could prepare you for the military, so they could use you for that side of it? Did the government try to use you? What was up with that? I heard you say something like that. I don't know if can you talk about that?
Yeah, man.
I don't know if you can.
Dude, I talk about all this stuff. I've been talking about this stuff for 7 years.
Okay, I just want to make sure, dude.
I appreciate you asking. Actually, 8 years. Like
I just want to. Plus, I've
been explicit about this because I appreciate your.
I don't want to ask you, bro, something that maybe puts you. I don't want to like bring
I'm a literal
you back.
Open book, man.
I don't want to bring you back to that moment either, if anything like that happens. So go ahead, though, bro.
Dude. So you got to deal with those moments. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you got to face the man in the mirror. And I have had to face the murderous monster, because I became a monster at the end of the day. You become something else to try to survive. And that's what they bred me to become like. It's like, I could have had this bloodline lifestyle and this inheritance and this power and this wealth. And instead it was like, they made me to be like a beaten, worthless, starved dog. You know, like you can train a dog to be an elite guardian dog, or you can train it by just beating it and being horrible to it and starving it all the time. And that was the path my family used. And so then when they figured out revenge is what motivated me, when they figured out like I was like this, I wanted justice at the core tenet of my being. Like I was made to have justice, period. Like I believed in it, and I had an insatiable hope that justice was coming, and I wanted to be the hands of justice no matter what. And so once they found that out, man, they took like all of my aptitudes, my accolades, and anything that I ever had, and they just trained me and built me and catered me to just kill and destroy and slaughter. And the main target of that, they just had to convince me somebody was like a pedophile, somebody was an abuser of children, and somebody was covering up those crimes, and I would go after them. And I found out later on there was a lot of like double dealing with that, with people that were breaking the oaths or like telling the secrets and stuff like that, or so they would say. And I think some of that's just propaganda to try to keep people to keep the secrets and stuff like that. But they would let me out. The only time they would ever let me have any expression of like individuality and like excellence or brilliance was to go out on a hunt and to go after these people. And there's a lot of like injecting stuff between people's toes and like poisons in particular with morphine and opioids. Like there's this other one that you use is called purple monk's hood, which comes from a specific flower that my dad and I would like go out and collect on hikes and stuff like that. And you render down these poisons so that you can kill people in different ways. And like I got totally caught up in this. And this was not just to like, this wasn't just for grooming into the military. Like this was the family business, y'all. Like this was the product. After you get to a certain age where you're used up. I know this sounds disgusting, y'all, but like they don't want boys after they're like 9 or 10 years old. They really are. There's a form of ritual magic these people are all about, this Crowleyan sex magic that goes all the way back to the Book of the Dead, this Egyptian sex magic that wants little boys specifically. And they don't, once you're out of that, you have to find some other way of adding value to the family business. Otherwise you're out, and they will literally kill you out of it. So that was the way that they started grooming me into that. Now, later on in my life, when my great grandfather moved in, my family moved up to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And that's where a lot of like the military side of the grooming procedures started, so that I could start doing work with the United States Air Force and then ultimately with the United States Army. But and that took on a totally different turn, because I mean, at that point in my life, I had been so like stuck on like wanting to be out of my family. Like I just wanted some way out. It's like why the military appeals to people that come from extreme abuse and extremely violent upbringings. Why there's a lot of guys that are in the gang culture fit well in the military, because there is this similar form of like, we'll rescue you and we'll look after you, and this like the promise of a brotherhood that doesn't have the same confines of like the drug and crime scene that a lot of them are mingled with. And so the military was like, for me, like it got presented to me, especially at 13 and 14 years old. They started really training me specifically to go into that. And like, I have a form of like, I have a great recall of information when I'm into something, man. I can retain books of information like super diligently. And so everything got steered towards the military. And so I ended up enlisting as a junior in high school to the United States Army. As through they have something called the delayed entry program, but my family emancipated me over. And with that came like this mind control side of me. Like the United States military bought me as an asset for them to operate under special kill teams. And this is within the United States military. They have special kill teams that specifically are utilized to eliminate and take out state dissidents. This would be guys that they use these terms like, domestic terrorists and other stuff today, but this has been around a long time for how they assassinate and kill soldiers. And the United States military has their own teams within teams. So like you're in a unit and you got other guys that come in as a part of your unit and they're only there for a little bit of time. They're a spy. By intents, a lot of them are spies, y'all. And some of those spies have a very specific job that they're there to do, which is kill other soldiers, that they are trafficking in humans, trafficking in drugs, trafficking in secrecy. And there's a total other world of espionage. And so a lot of that gets brokered through the Defense Intelligence Agency. And then under a charter of the State Department, there's a special unit that was set up that was called the Lobos out Fort Lee, Virginia. And that was being directed by a guy named General Stanley McChrystal out of JSOC in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And so my life really got caught up in that world. And I thought I was going to be a hero, man. And I got to see that there's still so much duplicity in the military. And it killed my idol,
Yeah, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia for AIT too. So yeah, there's also contractors too that are doing the same thing. So it's that are through the Department of Defense, and they are ex-military that are getting paid buco bucks, man, to go and do what you're talking about. I know some people right now that invited me to join, you know, the or to basically get a job with them. And obviously I declined, you know. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to do anything like that. I was I went for soldier of the year for or sergeant of the year for our battalion and brigade. I was, dude, and I also did it for the state of California. So I was on a track like you, man. I love the military. I really was into it, man. And then I learned so much about it, and I learned so much, and there's mind control there too, bro. I mean, it's mind control as well, as you know. I mean, left face, right face, you know, all that stuff, bro. You automatically just do it. There's a lot of mind control there for it's not so much deep as MK Ultra or like split personality or or anything like that, but man, it's
trauma-based mind control all the same. I'll tell you though.
Yeah, there is, man. And I know a lot of people that have gone in and they have, and they go to the VA, bro, and they just, all they get is just pill after pill after pill after pill, and that stuff makes you suicidal, and a lot of stuff has happened through the military. So I see the darker side of it, and I see the side of you know, taking away people out of their homes, marriages being broken up, families being broken up, kids not seeing their dad. There's a lot of stuff to it, man. There is a side to it, like there's a side to it that creates discipline in you, which is amazing, and there's a side that creates, you know, wanting to work out. And if you spiritually get strong, physically get strong, and you use it the right way, it could be something positive impacting your life. But there's also stuff that some people are not, you know, mentally built for, that causes a lot of problems in people's lives, you know. So I totally understand.
I think Nathan, you sound like this movie called The Hunted with Benicio del Toro. Like, you go through such training and all this stuff, and you can't shut it off. You know, you go there. If you're used to I don't know, maybe like you said, they're spies or they're just
espionage,
espionage like that. But you're easily disposed. Yeah, assassin. So you're easily disposed of. You know, like, if you don't have like a connection with your family or anything like that, and you're already programmed to be like, hey man, I already want revenge. I already want to go do this thing. So yeah, you just can't shut it off. You just get programmed to do something, and then once you get used to it, you get sent into a situation. You know, those guys just go by themselves. You know, you have like a full team of Navy SEALs or something, but these guys just go in by themselves. They go in, they do their job, and they get out, and they never even heard of them. And if you get caught, the government doesn't even know you. Yeah, we have no idea who you are. You acted on your own. It's like, dude, you trained me to do all this stuff. I mean, that movie was really good because he was trying to come back and you know, like try to be normal, but he couldn't. So he just lived in the forest by himself, and he would actually, people that were hunting, he would go out there and actually hunt them. It's a crazy movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but
once you hunt a man, you know, there's nothing else gives you a fix like it. You know, there's just no way. I've tried to hunt animals, y'all. I can't. You know, it's just like, there's a purity and an innocence in an animal that I don't see in the eyes of a human. And that sounds super disgusting to some people, but like, I have seen so much depravity, and I have seen darkness put on human flesh, and reign and rule and ravage. And I've seen it from the days, my first memories. You know, I saw it endlessly, continuously. Like, I did a video that was called "Is It Better to Be Alone" on my YouTube channel, YouTube it. And because I wrestled with that, man. I literally would run away into the woods at night. Like, I'd live in caves and tunnels and like dens with dogs and animals. Like, that was safety to me. That was like freedom. You know, I finally felt freedom out there. And so I literally, like, if I didn't have a wife, man, that's still all I would be doing, man. I'd be living in the forest, and I'd be going into cities and just slaughtering people, you know, like, not just people in general. Just let me be clear. Like, I would hunt monsters, very particular types of monsters. I can go into any major city and start to evaluate and find where are the pedophiles in particularity. They have very specific types of languages and call signs and ways of interacting and dealing, and certain car services that they start to utilize, certain police officers that they start to favor, judges, magistrates. Like, there's an entire ring and network that operates within every major city, and you can find it like it's nothing once you come from it. And this is why, like, the whole judiciary model that is supposed to be this thing that's out there, like, they busted 20 pedophiles, and, you know, and I'm like, there's 25,000 of them that I could find in Denver City in a month. Like, the level of absolute complexity of duplicitousness inside our judicial system is what allows this to foment, to foster this, to cultivate it. And that goes back to that root of these guys that swear these oaths of allegiance to a different mighty one, to a different God. And they're looking out for them. Like the amount of underworld activity that's taking place in our cities is unimaginable to people that aren't in it, you know. And like this human trafficking trade, like my family had a network that ran from Nogales up into Tucson, into Phoenix, Arizona, and then over into Lake Havasu. And they were literally bringing in people like cattle and then butchering them in the states of trauma, extracting compounds from them, man, and selling those like pharmaceutical drugs to get people all kinds of different beneficial effects. You know, like there was a literal like meat market for their bones that they grind up and make into breads and the cakes that these people eat in their rituals. You know, these people aren't just doing Catholic mass and saying the blood and the wine. Like they're literally meeting the body and the wine. They're literally eating bodies. You know, it's not some like transmutation ritual. They're physically doing that. And this is just like, once you are seeing that on such a continual basis, man, nothing else will satisfy that need for justice like stalking a monster in the darkness and letting them feel what it's like to be hunted, letting them feel the dread of the night, you know. And that's, the Father ripped me out of that in a very powerful and profound way by giving me my wife, you know, giving me a woman that was an innocent, give me an outsider who just loved on me. She didn't know any of this stuff. And it wasn't until I let out little tiny incremental doses of that over the course of our marriage that I got to trust her enough to be like, will you love all of me? You know? And she's like, I'll love every part of you, no matter what's in there. And like, I've tested her, man. Like, I know that's maybe not the way to do it, but I've tested her on that. And our marriage we're 12 years in, and it's been brutal. It's been beautiful. And like, I've got 4 children right now, and not any of them have been passed through the fires of this, you know. Like, he has literally opened a barren womb and given us life where there was death, you know. Like, my name is Nathan, and it literally means given, giver, gift, you know. And like, they made me to be a taker and a thief. And you know what? That's a different kingdom. That's a different deity that I don't serve anymore. And I surrender my sword to him. And I'm like, listen, I want to see these people brought down with the sword of my lips, as I've seen your son did it so effectively.
Yeah. So when did you become a Christian? When did you like start going to God and you know, and accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, bro? I'll wait till you get done drinking your drink. Sorry.
Dude, this is one of those guys. There was like I finally saw a man be a man. And it was these guys on when I was 7 years old, my mom turned on the TV and put on this. These guys were in an arena that were traveling around the country, like preaching and stuff like this, but they were called the Power Team. And they were these super yoked out dudes, like just tearing phone books in half and license plates in half and bending rebar, you know. And they were just like men, you know, like, and they were like, they were like, if you think we're strong, man, because we do these things, we're really weak, man. But you know what gives us our strength? Jesus Christ. And if you want to be powerful and if you want to be mighty, you call on him in the name of Jesus, you can be saved. And I was all like, yes,
wow, that's awesome.
I want that. Like, because I'd seen a sissy version of Jesus my whole life, masqueraded in the church and the pulpits and the pews, and these perverts, like these guys that they literally masquerade Jesus around like he's naked and dead on a cross. And you're like, that's not the Messiah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Believe me, I read the book of Revelation, and like, he is the revealed Messiah there. There ain't nothing weak about that man. No. There was never anything weak about that man, not one time. The greatest strength he ever had, the only moment of vulnerability that he had in that garden, man, when he's dripping sweats, drops of blood coming out of his face from like the weight of all of it coming upon him, and he's just to surrender to the Father's will in the moment of your greatest testing, man. There's no greater strength that I've ever seen, but I never saw that in church. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't see that.
Well, the way you explained it right now, sorry. The way you explained it right now was beautiful, man. That's exactly. I never got that either, man. All I got was a light version of it, lightheartedly tapping on that. But the way you just explained it right there was perfect, man. I mean, he was sweating blood, you know, and he still did the will of the Father. So, but yeah, I didn't. A lot of the times you don't get that. People they tiptoe on like Luke and Matthew, and they just speak of these things. I mean, but dude, yeah, you got to. That's true, man. Once you get to Revelation, some of the churches don't even teach out of Revelation because they're kind of scared to dig into that. But you got to do, like you said, man, you got to do the whole Bible, Genesis through Revelation, bro.
Yeah, man. Otherwise, you miss the story. It's like the very chapter 3, man. He's gonna crush the head of that serpent. At the end of the day, that's why I serve him, man. He's the only one I ever saw that put fear into death's eyes. You know, he rebuked death. He's the only one who rebuked death off of me, saved my life. And it really wasn't until I got out of the military and like started going to a church that had like a recovery program, you know, I was like, I was a mess. You know, I lost like my whole life I had been geared up and dreaming of this like military dream, and it was over in a couple of years, and like I was lost, so lost. And so I ended up going to this like recovery place that was called Shift, which did like a 12-step Christian-based recovery program, and that started really helping to rebuild my identity in a lot of ways and turn me back for a hunger for the word. And I threw out all the pharmaceuticals because, like you said, man, the washout program, the Veterans Affairs Administration, is here to suicide our soldiers. That is their number one prime directive that they are here to do, is to kill soldiers as fast and as rapidly and as efficiently and quietly as possible. And they do that on an incredibly efficient scale. And I got rid of all those pharmaceuticals, man. My life was completely different. My brain turned back on. You know, my hair was falling out at the time. I had irregular tachycardia. My heart would be up at like 200 beats a minute. You know, like I was walking dead. Like people met me. I had a heart halter monitor all the time. Like it was crazy. I was like, and I threw all that out and was like, you know what? You're either still the God of the Bible, like I knew you as a child, or you're not, and I'm gonna die. You know, and I was like, but I'd rather be sober and believe like this is how I can resist the devil. He's like, be sober minded, like resist, submit yourself to Yah, and like
that's the only way
resist
you
the
can,
devil,
bro.
and he will flee from you, man. And so like I got a sober mind, and it started to just, my whole life began to turn drastically around. It was about 10 months after that I met my wife. Wow. And it was like, and I ended up taking a tour over to Afghanistan, but with an NGO. And it was over there, man, that I realized like I want to be with that girl so bad. And I was like, I'm gonna go for it. And she totally shot me down, and it was like so crushing for a while. She was, yeah, it was. I start the book out with a love story, and then it's all real brutal, nasty, scary murders trying to kill my wife and I and our unborn daughter. And it's been a wild journey that he has had us on. But I'll tell you what, like we gave our life back over to him in a powerful and profound way, and like got recommitted ourselves, got baptized back to him, and started seeking him with everything in us. And I'm a passionate person. When I go all in for something, man, I am all in, absolutely. And so we were really devoted to that church for a long time. It's called Flatirons Community Church, and we were there for quite a few years. But then I went through a very distinct shift in my personality, and the killer came back right in the middle of all of that, and I wanted nothing to do with churchianity anymore. That was for sure. I didn't want the greasy grace. I wanted warriors and I wanted killers, you know, and that was all I was interested in finding. And I started finding all these truther Christian awake conspiracy podcasts and YouTube, man. And I started seeing some warriors out there, y'all, like some seriously brave men like Russ Dizdar and Rob Skiba and Steve Quayle. And like, bro, I started seeing some fiery guys that were out there that started showing me, Dr. Michael Lake, like showing me an opportunity of like, hey, how about we expose darkness wherever we find it and we don't compromise? Because that was always, I always inherently saw compromise was the currency of the kingdom of darkness. At the end of the day, that is the one thing that makes us distinct, set apart, or holy from the rest of the world, is that we don't compromise. And that is something that comes from convictions that are not of this world and that are immortal. At the end of the day, convictions are the only thing that they can never kill out of a person. They can try to get them to get you to capitulate, but if you can maintain the steadfastness of your convictions, this is truly what makes you unkillable. And I have seen that because I've seen that through those great cloud of witnesses that came before us. When you read their testimonies and you impress them on your mind on a regular basis, it fills you with courage because you've seen that they set their eyes before them. Like Abraham was looking for a city and a builder whose maker was Elohim. Like he settled their eyes on these things. Like having believed in these promises, they didn't even receive them. You know, a lot of them didn't even receive them, but you know what? They were counted worthy and faithful to the end. And I wanted to be among them. You know, I wanted to be somebody that went about destitute and was pursued by the sword. You know, I wanted to turn this world upside down and be someone who raised a family that this world was not worthy of.
So you said that's profound. You said
I wanted to say something real quick before you go on, Josh. You got the divine viewpoint, man. You've gotten it. You have, just like Job, you've gotten everything taken away from you. You've gotten all stuff. Like everyone asks, why do bad things happen to good people? Sometimes it's because God wants you to get the divine viewpoint. All the stuff you've been through in your life, very tragic, very horrible. And I so sorry you had to go through all that stuff. But everything that you did go through and you've done has brought you to the man you are today. And to testify of that and to have your testimony, that's what gets other people to understand that you're not the only one going through it. And also you help them. That's awesome, man. You're the way you talk and the way you speak is very very powerful, and like I like listening to you talk. That's usually I like to yap my mouth on, but what you're talking about, you got the divine viewpoint. You've been blessed with that, and I know that a lot of people go, man, how do you get out of that? How do you still follow Christ after all of that? Like, you were a good, you were a child, but just to get you where you are today. Did you even think you were going to be married before that? Did you even want to marry anybody or be with a woman before, like long term? No, you didn't probably didn't even think about it.
I wanted to die.
Yeah, yeah.
I just
I've
wanted,
been
I
there.
can't even do, all I wanted to do was die. That's all I thought about all the time. I was so demonized by death. Like I can't, people that have never experienced like deep oppression there is a spiritual, a real darkness that invades the mind that is not every thought you think is your own. And there are some of those thoughts that are their only one agenda is to drive you into death. And it says like temptation comes and then lust comes with it. And when lust gives birth, it gives birth to sin. And with sin comes death. And it's like a real powerful entity. And that was my family's spirit, man. That is the spirit that reigns over my family. And that's such a horrible, horrible thing to have to say about your family. But like, that is the God they serve. And so that thing sought my life constantly. And I learned a lot about spiritual warfare very early on. Like I never had a misunderstanding about principalities and powers and rulers and dominions and thrones. And I understood that Satan masquerades himself like an angel of light and his workers do likewise. Like I have seen that take place in front of my eyes since I was so young, and I had to resist that death. And no matter, this was at the end of the day, y'all, like I could not die. Like that's why they used me for what I was. Why I think I was really picked for this is because every time there could have been all kinds of horrible violence that took place in a room, and I was the sole survivor over and over and over and over again. And eventually people figure out I can profiteer off of that. But then I was the one left with like it's called survivor's guilt. You get to a place where you're like, why are all of them dead? And why am I always alive? And why am I stuck with the nightmares? And like, I was so scared to go to sleep. I was so scared to go to sleep. I was like, as soon as I finally could get my hands on like over the counter medications and just anything to alter my brain, man, I got so addicted to substances. Like I ran to anything that would drown out the memories, drown out the dreams. And so I had a dream when I was young to have a wife and a family and that stuff, but that went away. That died, especially when my great grandfather moved in with me. That really died. And but I wanted to go die in the military. At the end of the day, man, I wanted to die a hero's death. I was always just like, I just want to die, jumping on a grenade and saving my buddies. Like I would read all those tales of the Congressional Medal of Honor winners and all the brainwashing they do with you when you're going through, especially like Soldier of the Month or Soldier of the Year. You memorize all these stories and stuff like that, and you're like, man, I've been reading that since my youth. And that's like that. If I go out that way, people will say like, you did good, and other. So
how many years did you spend in the military?
I was in for 2 years.
Okay. Did you get medically discharged? Did you have something like that happen? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was wondering, because you said that you were you said that it was over. I was like, dang, you could have stayed in, but it sounds like something happened. Okay.
No, yeah, I threatened a general and he kicked me out.
Okay.
Yeah, he washed me out of the program.
Fast. I've had that. You're the second person that I know that did that. Yeah, it's crazy.
I didn't know he was plain clothes,
Yeah. Yeah. Dang, man. That's crazy. Yeah. So you've gone through a lot, but like Jason was saying, man, like, I mean, God kind of puts, you've had your faith tested so much. I mean, throughout your life, there's some people that live life, they just stay on that Christian walk and they don't have to go through all this stuff. You've been through the fire, like you said, snatched from the flames. You've been through, I mean, absolute hell. You've been through so much and you ended up coming back to God, and that's amazing because you could have reversed that and blamed everything on God, like some people try to do, even though everybody has free will to do what they want. That's the reason why that stuff happened, is because those people have free will. Entities are pushing them to do that. The devil is involved. And the only thing that you could do at this point as a Christian, I would think, is even though I know that they're worshiping Satan, is to pray for them. You know what I mean? That's all you could do, because Jesus says to pray for your enemies. And I understand that. I know that's hard to say, but I mean, when I listen to Emma's show, I mean, I think that's the only thing that really would be the right thing to do, as far as what Jesus, I think, would want you to do. Pray for your enemies and pray for these people. That's all you can really do,
Yeah, I think it's a critical component, especially in dealing with personal injury and disputes, is to extend mercy and forgiveness, because freedom freedom for you from that prison cell of bitterness comes by unlocking the door that you're holding the key to, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness is that key. And like, that's where it started for me, as I went to my family and extended that. Like, I started getting healing for a lot of these trauma and these memories, and I began to really wrestle with that. And so I went back to my family trying to extend that forgiveness to them. And they responded by trying to kill my wife and my children, my unborn child. And it was like, okay, well, we're going to have to take a very different tact. You know what I mean? And this is why I turned to my pen, because I've done a lot of very effective things with my sword. And I recognize at the end of the day, once you're outside of that, though, you don't have the immunity maybe that shielded you before. And so if you're, like you said before, if you're caught out there on your own, you're going to be hung out to dry on your own. And so it was very, very clear that I didn't want to have to pick up. I don't want to have to pick up my pistol. You know what I'm saying? And like, I got to see the Father literally jam their weapons at times when they came after us. I've got to see him stop every version of murder that they had intent on their hearts. And I've seen him deliver my family in supernatural and profound ways because we put our trust in him. At the end of the day, like, I was like, either you're still the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or we're going to die. But I would rather die knowing that I put my trust in you to deliver my family. That being said, I tell you what, man, I start praying very, very diligently, very strategically, and very effectively on a continual basis to try to ask the Father to build a hedge of protection around my family that no human and evil spirit can penetrate, that he'd forgive the sins that are empowering these evil spirits being sent on assignment against me or my family, that he'd break their power of communication and take off the wheels of their transportation methods. Like, I have seen him disrupt their communication methods, like, in front of my face. He is so sovereign over this world system, but you know what he's looking for is his sons and daughters to lay down their lives in absolute surrender and commitment to him and his kingdom, and devote themselves with radical commitment, with zealousness. Is this powerful, beautiful world. Like, there used to be Pharisees, Sadducees, and zealots at the time of the Messiah. And you know what? Those zealots, he had two of them within his 12 apostles that he picked out. Two of them were zealots. And that's literally where we get the word sicario or hashashin, assassins. That's like, you all be wondering who some of these guys are. They are assassins that he picked out of the crowd because he's like, you know what? They have a purpose with that passion and that drive and that commitment to the cause that he wants for the kingdom's sake. And when you get guys like that committed to the kingdom, there's no greater thing. And so for me, yes, praying for my family, praying for the perpetrators of this has been an important piece of it. But there is a critical component that we have to reprove and expose these works of darkness. There's a lot of people that are willfully ignorant and unwillingly ignorant of these devil schemes. And he says, be not ignorant of the schemes of the devil. And it says the literal reason that the Son of Elohim, the Son of God, was manifested was to destroy the works of darkness. That's why he came. And so if that's what he says, have a mind like Christ, then we need to have a mind like that we need to seek to steal, kill, and destroy all of the doubt and the despair and the hopelessness and all of the contractual obligations that we've had with the kingdom of darkness, purge these idols from our lives and begin to cling to him and begin to call upon him to deliver us. Because that's literally what he listened out for. He's listening out. He's a good father waiting to hear the cries of his children. And when we call on him, I'm telling you, he raises up judges of deliverance for us. He raises up warriors from his people to help set the captives free. And I believe that is what we are all born to do. We as men, as fathers, have a duty to do that first with the man in the mirror, and then over the covenantal relationship we have with our wife, and then over our children. But then, like, as we get our homes in order, man, we better go work diligently to advance the kingdom of righteousness with every breath in our beings, because we're commissioned to be soldiers in his kingdom.
Yes, I agree with that, man, 100%. And there's a few different verses, man, like Ephesians 5:11, take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. John 3:20, for everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to light, lets his work should be exposed. Isaiah 5:20, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Proverbs 8:12 is the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance in the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. And man, I just think obviously we know about Ephesians 6:12. We say that a lot on our podcast. We have so many spiritual warriors on here, but for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, in the high places. As we talked about on the last podcast, I believe that this is happening, where the moon and the sun and the stars are, they're high heavenly places, are where these spiritual hosts of wickedness are battling, spiritual battles happening. That's why I talked about in the book of Daniel, where it took 21 days for that angel to come, because they're fighting. And when we're doing these prayers, you guys think that you pray and it instantly goes to God, but as you know, in the book of Daniel, his prayer took 21 days to even get answered, because there's a fight going on between fallen angels and these angels or these messengers. So it's really interesting, man. But I love the fact that you're praying for these people, and that you've gone, it's like Paul, you like Paul the apostle, and you remind me of that, bro, because Paul was out killing Christians and killing them. And then, he ended up coming back to God, and Jesus chose him, made him blind, made him be able to see again, and chose him. And he became you're either 150% or you're nothing. That's kind of how Paul was. He's either 150% for these Pharisees and for the Jewish people, or he's 150% for Jesus. And that's what he ended up becoming. So that's why it's good for you to get dragged through the mud and put through all these different situations that you've been in, or that I've been in, and that Jason's been in, or a lot of people that I know that are spiritual warriors or soldiers for God, like you're talking about. We've been through the drugs, the pornography. We've been through family doing the same stuff that you went through, bro. Our family, same thing, man. Throughout our whole family, we've had people get molested, and it's not about ritual abuse or any secret societies, but it was stuff like that, man, in our own home, bro, and throughout my whole dad's side of the family, happening all through the generations of my mom's side of the family. My mom always talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now, all that stuff, man. And Jesus says, man, it's better to have a millstone hung around your neck and dropped in the deepest part of the ocean to cause one of these little ones to stumble. And what they did is they caused Nathan to stumble. What happened with Jason and me and our family, causing us to stumble. So we got to understand, man, it's like, and you know what I'm also happy about, bro, is because basically the family member that did that, bro, was super close to us. So I feel like I have kids now, and it's as you could probably know, you appreciate you're having your daughters so much more, or your sons, whatever you have, you appreciate it a lot more when you've been through what you've been through. Same thing with me and Jason, bro. Like my kids, I love them so much. It's like, and you probably the same, man, because what a bad parent is, and I'm not saying my mom was bad or my dad was that bad, but they, there was just stuff that we went through, man, a lot of spiritual battles that they went through, man, that caused some tough upbringing for us. My mom was great. I'm not talking about my mom, just my dad.
Wow.
But you know what I mean?
Testimonies are
how
so
much
critical.
how much more do you appreciate your kids now that you've been through that, right?
Yeah. Well, you lay your life down for them.
Yeah.
I'd like, my family literally was like, if I want the trust fund that I've been waiting my whole life for, like my family has empires of power in a totally different way. They don't have just money. They have a phone book, they deal in secrets, and it's a way more effective currency in that kingdom. Let me tell you what, man, when you owe somebody a favor in that world, it's a serious deal. And these debts get collected and called upon. And so it can put you anywhere with anybody, anytime. Wow. And that was, I had to sign away legal guardianship of my daughter, Naomi, if I wanted to hand her over to the family for a couple of weeks out of the year so that they could do what they did to me, to her, if I wanted that trust fund, and it was like, I am not going to, dude, if there's anything crazy, I absolutely am 100% committed to do, it's to do everything I can to protect and provide for my daughter and my family peace, life, love, like an authentic experience of growing up free to choose for herself who she wants to be. Like I never had choice, like it is a real thing to be a slave your whole life and to be trapped behind a prison cell of stupid. Like I was just made to be dumb, and it just killed me. I was never allowed to be me. And so like for her, I have 4 children right now, man, and they're the first generation that's born free from this. But it has taken me willing to go into absolute object poverty, absolute mockings, the scourge of public mockings and accusations. Like my family has been through the absolute worst versions of friends and family and churches and pastors and jobs and employers. Like we have seen the worst and the best of people. Like we sold our house in Colorado and traveled and bought an RV and traveled all over this country, 150,000 2,000 miles. And we got to see the most incredible people and cultures and experiences that the Father has his remnant scattered all over the earth. And they can be trapped right in the middle of a tiny little city, praying for help, praying for restoration, praying for deliverance. And the Father can send an ambassador, one of his perfect people, into their lives and transform them instantly. Like I have seen, he has a way better version of special forces than anything I ever saw inside any of those teams, because he does not require anything other than willing servants. And when he's got that, man, he's like, well, we can just go ahead and turn the entire thing inside out on itself overnight. He can turn everything that the enemy intended for evil, Yahuwah, my great creator, has meant for good in the saving of many lives. That's what Joseph was able to say to his brothers after his dad died. And they were all scared that now Joseph, the most powerful man in the world, is going to kill him or enact his vengeance, And he's like, no, you got to understand, he had a heavenly perspective on the matter. At the end of the day, the vengeance I seek against my family is not a carnal one. Let me tell you, like, I'm wrestling for their souls. I'm trying to pave a path here ahead of them, because I know some of them are going to get out. It's going to be a few who find that narrow road, but at the end of the day, we're called to clear that road ahead of them. Like, we're made to be scouts out in the world and spies in the land who try to go out and inspire the nations that, listen, no matter what you've been through, men in particularity need to talk about those abuses like you guys have experienced, like what's going on in the family secrets that are all over everyone. That's literally the subtitle of my book, is One Man's Journey to Uncover the Family Secrets Buried in His Bloodstained Past. Those family secrets are the chains of shame that are binding so many of us from our calling and are keeping us from being effective warriors for the kingdom. Like, men need to be able to talk about molestation, sexual abuse, rape, and incest. Like, it is an incredible scourge that lies on the backs of our shoulders that keeps us burdened down into sex and drugs and violence. This is like this false trinity that dominates from sexual abuse and from sexual perversion. When you get sexualized at a young age, which vast majority of young men now experience at a click of a button, a 9-year-old boy can see more beautiful woman than the richest of kings ever could see in their lifetime. Like access to pornography, like that is an absolute reality of, and there is a systemic design, a spirit behind that, a spirit of seduction and lust. Like the European Union just published their sexual education standards for the future, and they require every child to be exposed to every sexual act, which is verbatim taken from the Book of the Law and Aleister Crowley. Like, they're literally taking these words for how to sexualize children, making them be exposed to how to use just every version of it, from 3 years old to 6 years old and 6 years old to 9-year-olds, how they want them to be engaged in sexual acts by the time they're 6 to 9 years old, homosexual interactions. I mean, all of it's just laid out explicitly in there. And that's been something that's been going on in people's families all over this world for a long time. That's because men aren't standing up, confessing the sins of being, killing that generational spirit, man, crushing the head of that serpent and saying, as for me and my family, never again.
It was like a slow release pill. If I think I've said this on a past show. So it was like a slow release pill of this, like they started out like, on TV showing someone in like a full bathing suit. And then they went to like maybe like a 2-piece. And then they went to, a little bit sooner. Now you see a girl like in a G-string on TV. You're like, whoa. And then you got people on regular cable naked. And then, they just slow release pill that. And then now it's like they're slowly release pill of like making everything normal, like as far as like gays, lesbian, trans and all that stuff. You had this giant ritual with the Kardashian, Bruce Jenner, where that just plummeted everybody into that trans agenda. And I'm not, you know what, guys, I'm not trying to bash on anybody that's trans or gay or lesbian. That's your deal, because a sin is a sin. I'm just saying that's what you see happening. And I'm sure that a lot of people don't want that pushed on children. I think that whatever you do in the bedroom should, stay with the adults and not have to go to the children. But it was like a slow release pill, bro. But like you said, man, they don't even hide it anymore, bro. You could go to, like you said, the Book of the Law. You could go to the Satanic Bible. You could go to what they were always trying to bring. And now it's here and it's out. It's on the table, like modern day Sodom and Gomorrah right now, bro. And we're going through it. That's why you could see that the end times are here, man. And those people that used to hide in secret, now pretty soon what's going to be accepted is pedophilia. You know what I mean? That's going to be the next step, because it's like, hey, those people are not bad and evil. It's just that they're just born like that. You know what I mean? That's the next step from the trans agenda. Now there's going to add another P to that LGBT would be it, whatever it is, man. They're going to add a P to it soon. They want to make that normal because the politicians that are all doing this type of stuff, Washington DC scandal, all these different things I could bring up that conspiratorially, but I believe we're all fact. All the stuff that they've been doing, they want to bring it out and make it normal so that, that they're not getting busted for it anymore. They don't have to hide it anymore. It doesn't have to be secret, and I just see that happening, and it's terrible, man. Like God's coming soon, man. The vengeance is coming, bro. They will be judged for this.
Absolutely.
Oh, most definitely, dude. Most definitely. Good points, dude. Good points, big time. But it all started out with television in this 50s and 60s, and now you got your own phone or your iPad or anything, and you can look at it whenever you want. You could sneak off a kid, like you said, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, anybody that has access to the internet could go do that. You can look up anything, and it's very it's demoralizing our nation. It's robbing our children of being kids. I saw stuff like that when I was younger at a young age, but it wasn't on the internet. It was just accidentally stumbled onto it, and that was it. It was just like,
it was in the VCR at our house, bro. Yeah. I remember, dude. Like,
it's like, wow.
You accidentally you push it in, boom, it's on the TV, and you're like, I was even 2 years.
You have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is that? And then when I went to high school, you start getting curious, and boom, there you go. You're already having sex as a freshman in high school, doing things like that. And then you got your friends, they're like, oh man, you're so cool, dude. That's awesome. You're the man. You're a big old pimp, dude. You get all these girls, and then you start. In my mind, I was like, yeah, I am. That's how, I could do anything. I get it. And then I see it now that I have a daughter. I'm like, wow, man. Like, if I ever met somebody like me and just walks up and starts to ask my daughter out, it's just like, dude, I'm sorry, bro, but I'm gonna, like I was that guy. So sorry, you're not gonna date my daughter. You're gonna have to do a lot more than just show up and, Eddie Haskell, I think it was Eddie Haskell that, just, hey, how's it going, everybody? Put on that persona. No, it's like, I want to keep my kids for as long as I can. It's like these days people they don't do that anymore. It's just like you go to school, you have no idea what they're teaching your kids at school. They have no idea what's going on. And when I talk to my son, he's like, oh yeah, that's stuff like LG, like transgender, and it's like he's already heard about it. When I was that age, I wasn't even thinking about that. I didn't even know what that was. I was thinking about GI Joes, baseball, Saturday morning cartoons. Now it's like you're giving these children a chance to make a decision when they don't even they can't even make their bed yet. So they're making them a decision to do that. That's even abuse on as it is. It's just like, and I understand how hard it is, but nowadays it's very hard to be a follower of Christ and and to keep your kids, their eyes on Christ and people around. It's so hard. You got so many distractions and so many excuses and so many things that keeps you away. It's just, man, you got to go through tragedy nowadays just to come to the Lord. And it's like, you can't people just don't go to him anymore. It's like, oh, you know what? My dad, he went to church. So I'm going to start doing that. And most kids nowadays, their dad go to church or they try to push on. They're like, I ain't trying to hear that. Let me just go listen to the words, and then I could go home and play with my toys. That's how it is. It's just like, it's not there's no meat no more. There's not a lot of people out there or actually churches, small or big, that are tackling these issues. That are saying like, look it, this is wrong. That's wrong. Christmas is wrong. Halloween is wrong. All these holidays that you celebrate are wrong. They don't mean anything. They're meaningless, and you're actually giving homage to gods when you do that. I don't see the devil hanging out with the church on Good Friday, just one time out of the year. He doesn't do that. So why do we do that? Why do we let our children go and be a part of a ritual and be a part of something where they could get snacked up doing stuff like that? And you're teaching them how to lie And Christmas is the same way. You're teaching kids that Santa brings you the toys if you're a good little boy. For one day of the year, if you're good, the spirit of Christmas will come upon you and you'll get your presents from the Santa Claus. And then when you grow up and you find out Santa Claus isn't real, as a child, you're like, man, my mom lied to me about the Easter Bunny. She lied to me about the Tooth Fairy. She lied to me about Santa Claus. She's trying to tell me there's a God that died for my sins and forgives me of everything. But if I don't accept him, I go to hell. I don't even believe you, Mom, about Christmas presents from Santa. Why am I going to believe you about God? I'll just go to my friends or my teachers and let them teach me how to think, or I'll just follow that. There's too many, like, what do you call them, Josh?
Block walls, bro. Like, there's so many block walls between the Bible and you before you even read the Bible, like scientifically, psychologically, biologically, all these different things you learn. And then by the time you go and pick up the word, like Genesis is in a blender already, bro. They're not going to believe that God created the heavens and the earth. They're going to believe in a Big Bang theory. They're not going to believe that God created us. They're going to think it's evolution. When it comes to psychology, they're going to think they're mental illness. They'll never think that demons are causing it. They're not going to think that there's spiritual warfare going on. They won't believe Nathan with SRA, satanic ritual abuse. They're not going to believe anything like that, because you're already taught to believe in this Rockefeller system. You're taught to believe a certain way. So by the time you pick up the Bible, there's block walls put between you and God already. And then Jason, those other little things that you're talking about and things that Nathan is talking about, like some people, when Nathan's probably speaking, they have no clue. They might be Christian, dude, like for the last 40 years, but they hear stuff that Nathan's talking about happening, and judges, lawyers, doctors doing this type of stuff. They would never even believe it. You know what I mean? People in churches, Freemasons are pastors? No way. Or they won't even know what Freemasons even are. They've never been exposed to this type of Russ Dizdar stuff, or this Rob Skiba stuff, or the stuff that Nathan's talking about, or the stuff we talk about on the show. So they would have no idea about real spiritual warfare because they don't even know who their enemy is. You know what I mean?
You think, like, they go, oh, well, Christianity moved on throughout the years. It keeps going on. You don't think that other religions moved on throughout the years, like satanic religions, Moloch, the worship of the Baal. It's been going on just as much. It's been coexisting with Christianity as long as it's going to be. That's why God gives you the Bible to show you, look, this is what was going on. This is what is going on. And if you don't believe it, you're being ignorant to things, and then people call you, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're crazy. But I'm pretty sure we had about 6 or 7 people on about this on our show, and it's all the same kind of story, all the same kind of thing. And
he talked about Colorado, bro. I had somebody on the show exactly what Nathan said, and it corresponds exactly with Colorado. It comes a military program. And Nathan doesn't even speak to I don't even know if Nathan speaks to this person. So
I'm just saying,
it all corresponds.
It's like, man, if I was a cop and I was interviewing 100 people that was going through this, and they all have the same story, I'd go, oh, they're telling the truth. There's no way they're lying. This has got to be going on. Not, you know what? All this stuff is going on. These guys just make it up themselves. Why would Nathan make this up? He has nothing to gain from this. He has, if anything, he's going to get more, probably persecution or hey, oh, this guy is crazy, or you're a liar, or you're this or that. It's like, no, I'm bringing something to the light, and you're being very brave in doing that. Like you said, you need more men that are like that can talk about their childhood traumas or their recent traumas they've gone through. It's like, rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine. Those days that's not real. To be a real man is to cry, is to have compassion, is to have empathy, and puts yourself in somebody else's shoes and actually, and then if you go through it, help other people out. You don't have to keep it hidden, because there's other people that have gone through this stuff, and all you think about it yourself, oh, I'm the only one who did this, or I'm the only I gotta be the only one this has happened to. No, man, there's people everywhere that have gone through stuff like this, and they probably don't even know it. Maybe they were part of a satanic ritual abuse, stuff like that. But because like you said, your grandparents did stuff like that. My grandma that just recently passed, she wasn't like a regular grandma. She didn't come and cook you cookies and you go over there and she made you dinner. It's like, She was literally straight evil to the core. I thought, I seriously, I really think she started these generational curses in our family and never tackled them. And everybody that's in our family is the same way, and they all have the same characteristics, same addiction, same everything. If it's not alcohol, it's methamphetamines. If it's not meth, it's heroin. If it's not heroin, it's marijuana. It's whatever it is. Is everybody had to find a vice, and it's like no one tackled their issues. Like I didn't tackle my issues for a very long time because I was very like I said, I was kind of embarrassed about it. Like, oh man, this is not cool to talk. Now I'm just like, oh yeah, oh you've been through that. Oh, I've done this, this and that. And they're like, oh wow, you're pretty blunt and pretty open about what you say. Yeah, because that's how that's my testimony. Yeah. That's what proves God is real. That's what proves he moves in mysterious ways. That's what proves to other people. They're like, wow, you actually got the balls to say this. You know what? Yep, that happened to me as well. Oh, there you go. Now we can get a conversation going. Now we can open you up. Now we can get you going. And it's not a bad thing. God, for stuff does happen to people all the time, but really it makes you the person you are today. I thank my mom for being who she was. And if I could thank my dad, I'll thank him too. Hey, I would not be the person I am today and the father I am today without going through those things, because I don't want my kids to go through that. I don't hit my kids. I don't I don't treat them like they're burdens. I treat them like they're blessings. And it's just the way you talk to your kids and interact with them. Girls need fathers. Boys need the dads in the homes, and it's not getting nothing against the moms, but you do need a man in the house to set the discipline, to show the daughter, hey, that's the kind of man I want to marry. I want to marry a man like my father, not an absent father where it never around and now you're looking for all the love in all the wrong places. It starts in the home. And if you don't want to go to church, you don't want to go to a big church, then be the church in your family. Take your family and gather around it and start the relationship with there. It didn't start in the Bible with huge churches. It started in the homes. They would go practice in the homes, and it starts there because that's how you could get a very good grasp of the whole thing, and if everyone in the family sees you doing it, the kids are motivated to do it. Other people start looking at you going, what are they doing over there? They're different than other people. Crap's going on in the world. Your house burnt down, but they're still happy and they're going on. Lost their job, grandmother died, kid died, doesn't matter. They stick together and they know it's always going to work out for the good, for the believer. And I solely do believe that. Anything bad that happens in the world, anything, it's going to work out for the good. It will, totally. But you have to believe.
Go ahead, Nathan. We don't want to take over the podcast. We're sorry.
Hey, man. No. I like hearing you guys preach.
Yeah.
This is at the end of the day, the systemic destruction of the moral fiber of our society is what opened the door, and they targeted the men, they targeted the fathers and the husbands generations ago. And look at all the stuff that came in the door. Unless you bind a strong man, you can't go first plunder his house. And
the structure is right here.
Did. That's right. That is that used to be the fiber, and that used to be the guardian of the household. Those things. It's a real weapon. It's a serious. The word of Elohim is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, Amen. Piercing through the bone and the marrows, that separates the soul from the spirit, and is the discerner of the thoughts and the intentions of the hearts of man. Every creature is laid bare before it. This is a serious tool that you need to train up your family right away. I don't want my children, at the end of the day, I'm not raising them to stay children. I'm raising them to be young women and warriors. I've got a son finally now. My wife gave birth to twins at home. There was a total miracle. I didn't know I was going to have twins until I caught my son in a copper bowl. I thought it was going to be a placenta. And after 3 nights of labor, she gave birth to those twins, and the father spared her life. She was, I have seen miracles take place, but that's because I've been home. There's a critical thing that happens when fathers are committed to being with their families. there's so much deviance that takes place when you start to export your children to other people to raise them. There's a lot of people who are readily eager to raise your children for you, and they have a very ulterior motive inside that they are not going to be overt with. They are very covert about what it is that they're really interested in doing with your child, and it's not to raise them up in the interests of righteousness. And so it takes a deliberate form of discipline, like you were talking about earlier, Josh. Like, the disciplines of a godly man are what turned the world upside down. They really do. They are what can completely stop this, is that when parents stand up and say, I do not consent. Like, no, I absolutely will not give you another hour with my child. There's 15,000 hours of compulsory required education they're going to indoctrinate your child with when you ship them out and export them for somebody else to do that. You can't compete with that. You're going to have, on average, like 6 to 7 hours of waking time with your child a week if you export them to school. You think you're going to outcompete 40 to 60 hours of social influences that are designed and engineering them to totally follow the herd, to listen to the experts, and to do what they're told? You're not going to be able to outcompete that. And as much as you want to try to give your children a firm foundation early on, you're sending them to the wolves every day. Like, you're outnumbered and outgunned every single time you walk into one of those school classrooms. You know what? It's hard, even as men, grown men today, to maintain our convictions and our moralities when we're surrounded with peers of a similar age or aptitude. And that culture of influence that had been pressed on us by going to school, public schooling, or even private schooling, it's still that cultural expression of like keeping people in the herd that can get brought out so easily. And so that requires deliberate course of action to resist that. It requires us training up our children in the ways of God, like train them up diligently, teach these words, impart these words onto your children, talk about them when they get up and when they lie down, like literally when you rise up and when you go out. Like, there's a reason we're supposed to be so committed to doing that. Like, I have been with my children every day since they were born, like every day. I've had maybe a week or two out of the entire time that they've been alive where I've been out of the house or traveling and speaking elsewhere at conferences. Otherwise, I've been here with them. And that has given me a totally different perspective on what it's like to raise a family. And it's also way harder to be present on a regular basis with your family, and to not always pull the 10,000 escape shoots that are always out there calling our attention away from our families. It's not easy. And it requires that level of discipline. And we need that in our lives, because that's what fathers, we need shepherds over our household. Yeshua called himself the chief shepherd. We need to be that over our homes. We need to know, our family needs to know that we don't tolerate this evil coming into our doors, but it requires us training up another generation. All it took was for them to steal away 1 or 2 generations to rape us of our identities, to take from us those core tenets of morality out. Like you said, they use a very effective Hegelian dialectic. It's like when you study man, this is a warfare of death by 1,000 cuts. They've just slowly come in and incrementally attacked us a little bit at a time. It's called the Fabian tactics, the Fabian Socialist Society. The literal emblem is the wolf in sheep's clothing. They came
Fabian Society is actually a secret society too, but
they push.
That's it.
Back up.
And then that's pressure and release. It's the same way you train horses. It's the same way you train dogs. They're all these behaviorists, these people that broke people down to an animalistic level and started conditioning dogs. Like B.F. Skinner is one that's very famous, where he was ring a bell and then give a dog food and the dog would salivate. Ring a bell and give the dog food, the dog would salivate. Ring the bell, don't give the dog food, the dog is salivating. And you're like, okay, that's the part of the study people talk about. What they don't talk about is the next step, where they would then flood the tank, and they would flood his room that the dog was get in, and start training and experimenting on trauma. How does trauma affect the memory? Well, if you traumatize it and put it in through a near-death experience, all that memory went away. And they're like, wow, look at these amnesic effects that this could have. And this is where all these, like the systemization of deliberate trauma-based mind control is something that has been deployed on a whole scale worldwide. It's been systematically tested out in little pockets. Like, I come from a family that practiced it as a religion, but there's a scientific endeavor that's been orchestrated over our culture and infiltrated our schools and our education systems, our militaries, our police academy, like all over the place, to groom and cultivate people that are willing to comply with this system and go along with this agenda and compromise. And that's why I'm so committed to trying to get people to get back to a culture that does not compromise. That if we can retain our convictions and not move off of them and be willing to be a martyr for the cause, what you create is something that is powerful witness. Like you said, the enemy is defeated by the blood of the Lamb, the words of our testimony, and not loving our lives when faced with death. If we can get rid of those fears of men, fears of mocking, fears of failures, fears of obviously dying, if we can get rid of those fears and we can get a greater fear to fear only our Creator, to fear Him and Him only. And when we serve Him, man, we are set free to be empowered by His dynamite Holy Spirit, His explosive Holy Spirit to literally raise the dead, to cast out demons, to loosen the bonds of the oppression, like the real fast that He wants from us, to look after orphans and widows in their times of need. Like we are a culture of orphans. We are a culture who has inherited lies from our fathers, and we have to cast that off. And by doing so, we become the people that go and hunt the souls of men. That's what we're born to do. Like I still hunt the souls of men. I just don't do it with edged weapons anymore. I do it with a way sharper, more effective sword, which is one that comes out of my mouth, that comes from His word. And the more I put that word in me, and the more I diligently impart that to my children, man, I'm raising up warriors here. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I want them to be able to engage the darkness and expel the darkness, that the enemy has to flee. That's what it says. Children are an inheritance from Yahuwah. Like the fruit of the womb is our reward. Like arrows in the hand of a mighty man are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He will not be ashamed in the gates. Like he will not turn back with his enemies at the gates. He'll be blessed when he goes to his battles. You know what I'm saying? That is an effective fighting force. David, with all of his men, when he was on the run from Saul, King Saul, powerful man, set out every single day. It says he thought of ways to kill David. Every single day he sent the special forces, the elite cadre of Israel's best of the best, to murder David. And you know what? It said Yahuwah preserved his life. But he was on the run with 400 to 600 other mighty men and all their wives and children all at the same time. There was babies and dads and diapers and blowouts and poop and puke and crying and fussing. All of that, all at the same time when they were on the run. Like there was such a deeper level of like authentic masculinity that's embedded in the scriptures that we need to search out diligently as men in order to identify what does it look like to be a righteous man, and how do we navigate a world of warfare in order to be effective for that, so that it's not just AR-15s and sweet battle rattle and looking high speed and low drag all the time, that we are literally well equipped to be able to contend with corruption, deceit, and darkness wherever it abides.
Yeah, like that's a good point. Like that, it's not going to be the weapons of man. It's going to be your words. The way you speak, it will be. I think will be the weapon that we will have. And man, good points right there. Totally. We just gotta, like I always say this in Sodom and Gomorrah. God told Abraham, "You find me, 10." He even gave him all these chances to go find these people. None of them were good. And you know what that was? Is because it was the widespread condonement of it. Not everybody was doing it, but everybody was condoning it. It's like, hey, like these people go, hey, you shouldn't be mean to somebody that, that is, trying to be a transgender. And it's like, that's fine. You want to live in that world, but I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to be like, hey, I condone that. I'm going to just, you're a good guy. You're a good person, because I'm a murderer too. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I'm a lustful man. I'm all those things, everything. It's just that I'm fighting against those types of sins, like being a murderer, being a homosexual, stuff like that. Those are all inside of anybody can be that. It's as long as you could choose not to do that. You have to understand, like, you have that choice. God's going to respect that choice no matter what. And if you want to keep doing it, and not understand really that what you're doing is the reason the downfall of our nation is going on right now. The stuff you're participating in and even condoning, like, hey, I know people have kids that are wanting to change their genders on stuff, but what are you doing as a parent to support that? He wants to do it. It's okay. He's 10, 11 years old. Let him make that decision by himself. No, you, like you say, you stand up and you say, no, this is not going to, in my house, we will serve the Lord. Whatever you do is on you. I'll pray for you, and I will, let you, if you have a question, I'll tell you, what I know about the Bible and what I've been through in my testimony, but I can't save you. I can't make you make that choice to be like, you know what, enough is enough. Because there's a lot of people out there that I've been, I don't know if it's, just coincidence or God really is having me meet these people. But at my work, There's people that I'm meeting a lot more people that are of the faith and talking about this stuff all the time at work with men. Hey, we how do you say, we check each other, like, hey, you shouldn't do that, that's not right. We go to each other for advice, and you're talking to godly men that you get advice from. I'm not going to some atheist that just goes, you know what, just do you, buddy. It's all good. You as long as you are happy, who cares about everything else? It's not how it goes. We must be strong as men to step up and be like, hey, look at this is what's going on. This is what I don't condone, and this is what I will not tolerate, and I'm not going to do it. People at the church need to do the same thing, because they are letting things in that you shouldn't be. It does say love, no lie. It does say love your fellow neighbor, but it doesn't say to condone and participate in those type of abominations. It does not say that. It doesn't say burn it doesn't say kill them or burn their churches. It says separate yourself from them. And right now, as a one income family, I can't be home every day. Mm-hmm. I can't be doing that, but I work my butt off so that my wife can be here. At least she could be here, teaching them, the God's way, morals. This is bad, that's not good, don't do this, don't do that. But when you have two people working all the time, you have the government getting you to get out of the house and be attacked, basically a taxable person. And then your kids, the government gets them as well. They get to indoctrinate them however they want. If they want to indoctrinate them and tell them, hey, look, all the history that's been going on, it's all a lie. Here's the new history. And these kids would eat it up and believe it. It's going on all the time. It's like no one even talks about history like through the Bible history. They don't even talk about it. But this is very historical. It's very, very, very good book. Has great stories. Has some of the, you want like comic books? This has some of the greatest stories I've ever even heard. And at the end, they're always going to give you, keep your eye on the Lord, pray all the time, pray constantly, wake up in the morning, have God with you all the time, have God go to the store with you, have God, go get a sandwich, go to the movies with God, go buy clothes with God. You don't think that God wants to be with you for everything? It's that's how he wants it. Now, if you put him away in the back seat for this or that, or if you're gonna, I'm having to spend time with my family, I'll have to put God in the back seat. He's gonna go, I respect that, but you're not. It's all wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be, bringing me involved in everything. And people don't do that no more. I don't do it all the time, but I'm trying my best to do that, to where everything I do, I want God to be involved in.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, man. That's what you got to do. So, yeah, I think you had some great points, Nathan, too. We're so worried about them coming and taking the guns, but one thing we should definitely be worried about is them coming to take our Bibles, man. That could definitely happen at some point. So we got to be careful. But man, I think we had a great podcast. We're coming up on an hour and a half now, so that's where we usually like to keep the episodes, or we got to keep it like that. So, Nathan, any last words for our audience, brother?
No, I'll say this, it'll be a great day when persecution comes for the people in this society. I'll tell you that much. You want to read a book that will challenge you and give you some actual chutzpah, read The Insanity of God. I'll tell you what, that book was given to me by a missionary who I was working on a farm down in Southern Florida. And he asked me whether or not he thinks I should have life insurance, because he was a newlywed, and he was deciding whether or not he was going to go work on smuggling Bibles and recruiting believers in Somalia, where they have special kill teams wholly devoted to killing all the converts of every Christian that is chained up and brought over there. And so that opened my eyes to a whole other world of how criminals can be used for the kingdom of righteousness sake, and to be able to weaponize those skill sets and that mentality that we had once used for wickedness for great good and the saving of many lives. And I'll tell you, the underground church movement is alive and active in so many places, and the people have a hunger for the word like never before, when it's very rare and it's very uncommon. And so that you and I can have plethoras of scriptures all around us, that you and I can reach over and we can grab onto one of these and hold it up and not suffer a gulag treatment and not suffer the actual scorn of being in a place that's minus 60 degrees and naked and starving in labor camps. We have no ideas the wonders of blessings that we have in so many ways that have given us every opportunity to become incredibly capable warriors for the kingdom of Yah. And you know what? Persecution sometimes is exactly what's needed for people to finally have some fire in their butts. You know what I'm saying? Light a fire under their rear ends to get them motivated to get after something, to protect what is theirs, you know? And I sure hope that zealousness that they have, it's not that I'm an advocate against people having firearms and training and using them diligently. I'm just an advocate for storing up the water of the word more effectively and efficiently, so that when that day of testing comes, they can't take what's inside your mind, and you can use that to be effective in that kingdom and make a war that really is for those souls of men. It's such a more effective battlefield that we can fight in. And you know what? Our Father is very capable of raising up the righteous with even just a stick in his hand. Oh, you want to talk about, like you said, about those superheroes real quick, man? Like Shamgar. I want to talk about one of my favorite heroes in the scriptures. He's like the second judge in the book of Israel. It says he killed 600 men with an ox goad. That's like, it's a stick, like the staff. It's a 10-foot stick with a piece of iron on it. He killed 600 homies with it, dude. Like, bro, David killed tens of thousands of dudes. David was a murderous assassin. He was awesome, y'all. The Bible is such an absolute powerful historical book, and it is one of the most valuable tools to give you wisdom and tactics and reason and understanding to be able to contend eagerly every single day of your life. So thank you guys so much for having me on here. It was an absolute blast. I look forward to being able to connect with you guys some more soon.
Yes, we will definitely have you on. Do you like Rob Skiba, you said, right? I know he passed away.
He's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How awesome. Yeah. Rob Skiba was amazing, guys. Go check out Rob Skiba. Check out Russ Dizdar. Check out Snatched from the Flame. What is your YouTube channel called?
YouTube.com/Nathan Reynolds. Nathan Reynolds. My YouTube.
Nathan Reynolds. Okay, guys. Make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you subscribe. Jason, any last words before we go, bro?
Thank you, Nathan, for coming on. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your bravery. And dude, you're a wonderful person to talk to, bro. I could have stayed on here for another hour and been fine and just been talking each other up and bringing each other together. This is awesome. God bless you, buddy. And I'll be praying for you. And God bless you, Josh.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks for this podcast. Thanks for this outlet, this platform to, speak our minds, and hopefully, YouTube or whoever runs out there in the world starts to understand, hey, start sending this stuff out to more people, send it out to people that are starving for the word and starving for a platform to talk to. Anybody should be able to come on and talk whatever how they want to talk about. And thank you, Nathan, and thank you for your bravery, and God bless your family, and hopefully we see you again soon.
Yeah, we'll have Nathan.
Never number the troops, guys. Don't forget it. David got in a whole heck of a lot of trouble for numbering those troops. Don't you mind that. Y'all has always got you on his side.
Yeah. I know. That's why I'm trying to pump out kids as fast as I can. Bring more. It says be fruitful and multiply, not stop. Just you take some birth control and stop it. It doesn't say that. And also think about David. Do what you're supposed to be doing. Don't be. If you're supposed to be in war, go to war. Don't sit at home and let the eyes of lust. Yeah, just don't do that. Just when men aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's when the devil comes in. Just like how Samson wasn't supposed to be in that vineyard. What was in there in the vineyard? The lion. And the lion was ready to get him. And that's all. It all set up a thing to where, like, hey, as long as you're doing what you're doing and what God's will is going on, and you're doing the right thing, and also stay where God puts you. Don't start going all these other places. God puts you in this place for a reason. He will meet you there. You don't have to go to a big church to go find God. You really don't. He's right there.
Definitely not, bro.
He knocks, open up, let him eat. Then come on in and get the meat of this, get the meat of things. Don't sit there and read through, the New Testament. Go to the Old Testament. Like Nathan just said, he just brought up Judges, and not many people read those books. Like these are, yes, like you said, comic book heroes. These guys were picked by God to be basically BAs, bro, just badass dudes. Even women are in there too. There, you know, Deborah was one of them. She was a judge, and yeah, and it's just and if you want to be this warrior, and you want to be a real top-notch warrior, just start off with being a warrior for Christ, and then he'll pave a way for you to do whatever you got to do, because that's what we do need. We do need men stepping up these days, and women.
Definitely. I agree, man. I agree. This was a fantastic show. Nathan, I really appreciated you coming on. Guys, like he was talking about, put on the whole armor of God to withstand the wiles, the schemes of the devil. We got to make sure we're prepared and ready. Make sure you guys study your word. We have a lot of spiritual battles that happen to us in our homes. Fathers and men and women are being attacked daily. You got to be on your toes. You got to be on your feet. You got to be ready. I've been attacked lately, but I'm just, you know, every time we do a show that's spirit filled, I feel like I get attacked. But, you know, pray for us, pray for Jason, pray for Nathan. And right here, like we always do, we're going to end this one in prayer. So, Father God, in the name of Jesus, we pray. We pray against all these chains of wickedness and darkness that these evil people are trying to put on people like Nathan, and he's gone through so much. Lord, I just want to say, if you could put a legion of angels to protect him and his family. We also want to pray for all the people that were trying to cause these generational curses on him and his family. Pray that you know, they do find out, you know, they do come to you, Lord. You know, that they humble themselves before you. They lay all the stuff that they've done on the altar before you, and you know, if you could please supernaturally have them come to you, Lord, instead of worshiping Satan and worshiping all these fallen angels that they're worshiping. You know, if you could, we just want to pray for them. We pray for my family, anybody that's been through all the stuff they've been through. You know, Lord, you know what it is. You know, help them to heal. Help Nathan to heal. I know he said he's healed now, and I know that he's with you now, Lord. So I know he's healed. But help him, you know, fully to heal. Help his family to heal. We pray for his wife. I mean, what an amazing woman she is to hear everything that Nathan has been through, and to love him fully and show him what true love is. And I know, God, you show him what true love is, and you show us what true love is by sending your son to die on the cross for us. We love you, Lord. We appreciate everything you do. You know what I'm going through, you know what Jason's going through, you know what Nathan's going through. Anything that's attacking us spiritually, Lord, we want you to rebuke that in the name of Jesus, in the name of your son. Lord, we appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Anybody that's listening right now that needs you, Lord, please be there for them supernaturally. Help them bind all, and, you know, break all the chains or any addiction that they have going on, Lord, please. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you guys for listening. This is a powerful show. Please share the podcast. Okay. That'll help us. And also go and subscribe to Nathan. Make sure you guys check out his book, Snatched from the Flames. He came on here for free, and he's doing this stuff for free. He's exposing evil. So, you know, you got to respect what he's doing. Buy his book, please. And also the one that Johnny Cerrucci, go check that one out too. We love you guys. We appreciate you. God bless you.